Imagine your excitement as the movie you've been waiting for finally hits the movie theater. It's opening day, and you decide to attend the midnight showing. You purchase your tickets, popcorn, and a drink, and settle into the movie theater seat. The lights begin to dim. You get more comfortable, and the movie projects on the screen. Little do you realize that you just purchased your ticket to a nightmare. Welcome back to another episode of Operation Evil. I'm Nyoka.
I'm Rachael.
And I think we have some business to attend to.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple new patrons, supporters. Our community is growing.
Business suppliers.
Yes. How about you give your shout out to one and I'll give a shout out to another.
I'm going to give my little shout out to Jen.
Yay, Jen.
Jen.
Thank you.
Jen.
And then I'm going to give a shout out to Shane. Thank you. We appreciate you so very much. And we covered the other ones already. Mm-hmm. So check out our Patreon. The link is actually on our Facebook page. You might have to scroll down a little bit. I'll put it back up towards the top. But anyway, thank you guys.
Oh, and we got a Twitter going. So
yes.
We'll post stuff on there too.
Yes.
Links and what have you.
Yeah. And I will be beginning to post things on the Patreon. I tried to post a video. It did not go successfully. So I'm working on that. But I have a lot of other things that I'm going to be posting on there. So check it out. Be part of the community. Show us some love. What else we have, Rachael? Anything? I feel like we're forgetting something.
Yeah. Thank you to those who liked and shared and tagged people.
Yes.
With our last episode with the tarot card reader.
Yes, Chelsea was amazing. We appreciate her coming on the show and doing that. We're going to pick the winner tomorrow, but by the time you guys, it'll already be picked before you hear this episode.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do that live. And that's all the business that we have to attend to today.
Oh, and I apologize in advance because I'm all snotty. Been sick this week, so Sorry about that.
Yeah. She doesn't have COVID, though, so don't worry. You're not going to get it through listening to us. But anyway.
Will you read people's minds with your microchip that's in your arm?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm reading yours right now.
Today's topic, this one's kind of rough.
Yeah, we should do a disclaimer beforehand.
Yeah, it's just a trigger warning. If mass shootings are a trigger for you, then you might want to skip this episode.
And we will be discussing suicide, depression, and by no means are we promoting the shooter of the story. It's not about him.
No, never think it is on any of our stories that have to do with the murderer or anything. We're just telling the story and making people more aware of the situation. So this one is about James Holmes and the movie theater shooting in Colorado. And it happened on July 20th, 2012. It was a nice summer night, and Batman fans took their seats at the Century 16 movie theater for a midnight showing of a highly anticipated third installment of the Batman trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. I don't know, these movies were really big at the time. Mm-hmm. I remember going to the theater to see The Dark Knight. I don't know if I saw The Dark Knight Rises in the theater, but people were all about it during this time. But unfortunately, James Holmes took it upon himself to attend this movie, and he bought a ticket for The Dark Knight Rises, entered the Theater 9 around midnight. He chose a front row seat. He pretended to take a phone call and he left through the emergency exit, and he propped the door open with a plastic doorstop.
And mind you, this emergency exit is at the, I believe on, like, if you're looking at the screen, it was on the right-hand side.
Yeah, so they have it, yes. So he leaves himself a little opening there. He returned 18 minutes into the movie, dressed in a ballistics helmet, a bulletproof vest, bulletproof leggings, a gas mask, gloves. It was leading some audience members to initially think that he was performing a stunt for the film. They just thought it was some kind of new experience. They were not concerned, but suddenly he tossed a tear gas grenade into the audience. And panicked moviegoers scrambled for the exits. He fired a 12-gauge pump action shotgun into the seats, then opened fire with a AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle with a high-capacity clip that jammed. He also fired several shots with a Glock 40 caliber pistol. And that's a whole lot of different weapons there. Okay, so 10 victims died at the scene, while the other 2 died at the local hospital, so 12 altogether passed away. Among the dead was a 6-year-old girl. 70 people were injured in the ordeal, and most were injured by gunfire, but a handful were injured during the chaos that happened and people trying to exit. One injured victim was hit by gunfire in the next theater.
Which I think that was Theater 8.
I think so. A 3-month-old was among those taken to the University of Colorado Hospital, but he or she was quickly discharged. The doctor told ABC News at the time that 22 victims were taken to the University of Colorado Hospital that night. The first of 41 calls to 911 came in about 12:30 a.m. 41.
Wow.
911 calls. That's pretty crazy. So the calls are coming in. People are reporting explosions and 10 to 20 shots fired with people down. The police station was close by, and the first officers arrived about a minute later. They were greeted by a horrific scene. Blood, body tissue, spilled popcorn. It was everywhere. The air was filled with tear gas and gun smoke. Panicked people were screaming. Cell phones were going off. Nobody was answering them. 10 people lay dead in the theater, and 2 more were pronounced dead at the hospitals. Police apprehended Holmes in his car behind the theater within minutes of the shooting. He was found in his full riot gear, carrying 3 weapons, which we already talked about those weapons, which was an AR-15 assault rifle, a Remington 12-gauge shotgun, and a 40 caliber Glock handgun. A 4th handgun was also found inside the vehicle. Holmes told arresting officers that he was the Joker, and I say that in quotes, the Joker, referring to the villain in the second installment of the Batman movie trilogy, The Dark Knight.
And I wanted to add with that too is that for everybody that has seen him, he dyed his hair like a orange, like a bright orange.
Yes.
And so it was said that that's why he did it. And I found in another documentary that he just did it to look exotic.
Yes.
So, did you see that too?
Yeah, there was conflicting information on that. So it sounded like it wasn't for the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Like people report it initially.
Yeah, like he said that it would just look better than green or blue. So, right. I mean, my taking on that is that he just wanted to stand out.
I think so too, because I believe it's green hair for the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
So, not long after, law enforcement agents evacuated buildings near Holmes' Aurora apartment after he told them that he had booby-trapped his home with explosive devices. I have pictures of this that I'm going to post. Have you seen the pictures?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't just put out a couple traps. I mean, he went all out. He really...
Yeah. He did like a, had music turned up loud.
Yes.
Which I think you're going to go into details or more information about that.
But I will post the pictures. Check that out. So he booby-trapped his apartment. When Holmes was arrested, he warned the police, which I'm surprised he did. Because just his whole...
it was a distraction, is why he did it, though.
Oh.
So I'll talk... You tell that part first, and then I'll get back to that.
So he warned police that he had booby-trapped his apartment. The next day, police, bomb squads, and agents from the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms found a large number of explosive devices and trip wires in his apartment. At first, hazmat teams had to proceed searching Holmes' apartment with caution, since the materials could have blown up the apartment building and the ones near it. Video from a bomb squad robot showed gunpowder, gasoline, and motor oil scattered across Holmes' apartment floor. The video also revealed dozens of black spears with fuses all connected to them and pickle jars filled with liquid and bullets inside of them.
Which we found out that the black spheres were cannon shells.
That's insane.
They look like a mini bowling ball or like something that you would see in a cartoon that would explode like a little bomb.
Yeah. The first booby trap was a tripwire made of a fishing line with one end connected to the door jamb and the other connected to a thermos. Richard Orman, a senior deputy district attorney for the 18th Judicial District of Colorado, said that the thermos had a bottle of nearly pure glycerine perched precariously on a frying pan that contained the chemical potassium. I'm going to say this wrong. Permanganate. Sorry, I'm just...
Yeah, I don't know.
Too big of a word for me.
Permanganate.
That sounds good. If the glycerine had fallen in, it would have ignited an explosion big enough to blow up the entire apartment. Orman said that in 2015, following the release of the FBI report, overall, more than 20 bombs were found in the apartment.
I read something, too, that there was, like, magnesium in there, supposedly, which maybe is another term for some of those other terms you already said.
Yeah.
But it said that, like, when magnesium is mixed with water, it just, like, intensifies a fire. So he meant to do some damage. I think he's full of crap, because the thing was that he said that he knew, I guess maybe he had practiced the time or something, or he had guessed how long it would take for the police to respond to the shooting at the movie theater.
Which wasn't long.
It was...
Minutes.
Yeah, a minute and a half, I think.
Yeah, because it was that close.
But he wanted something to distract that. So, he figured someone would go call the police because he played this music really loud. He figured someone would call the police would show up, this apartment would be booby-trapped, blah, blah, blah. That would totally distract so he could murder more people at the theater.
Right. Like he was banking on his neighbors coming to the door about the music being so loud.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had the music loud and on a timer. That goes off.
And there was like a remote device that he had outside of the apartment. There was like a remote or something that
Okay.
Was it on a timer, or was it just like if someone had opened the door, it would go off?
I think if somebody opened the door,
It would go off.
yeah, the whole thing would go off. So, but what was interesting is that almost happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm going to say this right because you're the one that sent me the documentary, but one of the neighbors, a woman, trying to get his attention about the music being loud. Of course, no response.
Yeah.
And she even noticed that the door was cracked open, and she even had her hand on the doorknob getting ready to turn it, but something stopped her.
Yeah. And she just called the police.
Thank God, because if she would have done anything more, that bombing would have happened for sure.
Yeah.
So whatever intuition was speaking to her that day, don't do any more. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really, really close call. So now we're going to get into like the witnesses recalling that whole nightmare. Witnesses said that they thought the smoke and the gunshots were part of the movie until they saw Holmes standing in front of the screen. We even watched this survivor story of someone being in the theater, and she even expressed that people did think that. They thought it was like a different kind of experience for the movie, and no one was alarmed.
Didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah, even when the shots started, they still didn't. It wasn't connecting because you got to think back in 2012, this was not
an everyday norm.
Yeah, this just wasn't a thing. Now we hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I know for us, I never heard of school shootings and things like that. We had bomb.
And that was somebody just trying to get out of class.
Yes, every time. So back then they weren't thinking shooter. I mean, that just did not even cross their mind. So someone says, you just smelled smoke and you could just keep hearing it and you just heard bam, 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 nonstop. One witness told ABC News the gunman had never had to reload. Shots just kept going. And that's because we found out he had 3 different weapons on him. So he planned that. He didn't have to stop. He eventually does. One gun jams and he goes back out to his car to reload. But, I mean, typically people would have been out of ammo at that point, but he was not. Moviegoer Christopher Ramos told ABC News in 2012 that, quote, people were running everywhere, including on top of him, and called the shooting a real-life nightmare, end quote. I froze up. I was scared, he said. I honestly thought I was going to die. Some lied on the ground to protect themselves. I'm with coworkers and we're on the floor praying to God we don't get shot. And the gunshots continue on and on. And when the sound finally stopped, we started to get up and people were just bleeding. Another theater goer said at the time.
And the thing is, there was a lot of heroes there.
Yeah.
I know there was one story of a boyfriend who protected his girlfriend. He just laid on top of her. I mean, there's dozens of stories like that.
Yes. Oh, so heartbreaking. At one point, Holmes exited the theater only to wait outside and shoot patrons as they attempted to flee. Witness Jennifer Seeger said on Good Morning America after the shooting. So shooter James Holmes purchased 4 guns prior to the massacre. In the 60 days leading up to the shooting, he purchased those 4 guns from local shops and more than 6,000 rounds of ammunition, police said at the time. All the weapons and ammo were purchased legally, police said.
And there was a pawn shop in California, because he's from, I think, like the San Diego area, or that's where his parents lived. And there was a pawn shop that he stopped in and was getting like shooting tips. And then a little bit later, when we go more into the trial, he would go to gun ranges. That's how he learned to shoot.
Yeah, well, that's how almost everybody learns to shoot.
Yeah, that would make sense with different intentions.
Mm-hmm.
But he also bought, like, he knew what he was doing because,
Absolutely.
like Nyoka already talked about the tactical gear.
Mm-hmm.
He would, like, buy these things, like, he knew that he had a chance of getting shot, so he bought these things to protect himself. He didn't want to die.
No, everything was bulletproof.
Yeah.
That he wore, all the tactical gear.
Yeah. And in one of the interviews with a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist said, was it comparable to OCD? Like, you know how if you have OCD, you got to check that light switch.
Yeah.
And he said, the more you check it, the better you feel. He said, is it like that when you would buy these things? Because he had so many guns and all these things. And he said, yeah, it was like that. Like every time I would buy something, I would feel a little bit of relief. So maybe that explains why he had so much of it.
Maybe. And people are probably like, oh, how did this guy purchase this stuff legally? Well, he didn't have a criminal record.
Right.
You do background checks when you purchase weapons. It comes back clean. He hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah, I mean, he was considered normal. And then, I mean...
He was just in the midst of snapping, but I mean, nothing in his background would have raised any red flags to this.
I think about a month before the shooting, he was pulled over by a police officer. So many miles from one of the shooting ranges. I think he was on his way there, and he was speeding. And the police officer pulled him over, and he just, did everything that you should do when a police officer pulls you over. Right. He was obedient. What's that word? Like, when you're respectful. Yes. He was respectful. He
complied.
Yes, there we go. And the officer didn't think anything different. And, in the trial, they said... Because he had already had his hair dyed, and they were like, did you think of anything of that? And the officer's like, no, it's a common thing. People do, mostly with girls, but didn't think anything of it.
No. Especially today. I mean, that's such a normal thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is. So things that investigators learned about his past. Well, since we're kind of digging in with the background. He was born December 13th, 1987 in San Diego, California.
Man, he was born in the 80s?
In the late 80s.
Dang, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. He graduated from Westview High School in California. I'm not even going to try to Rancho I don't know.
Penasquitos? Oh, no.
California in 2006. That summer, he interned at the Salk Institute of Biological Studies. Holmes went on to the University of California, Riverside, where he earned a bachelor's degree in neuroscience in 2010. During one of the college summers, he worked as a camp counselor for underprivileged kids.
Are you kidding me?
In Los Angeles in 2008.
What the hell happened to him?
I know. So when you look at him on paper, he's like, great.
Well, and he was, into soccer. He was very, very, very intelligent.
Yes, extremely. And his parents were too, from what I understand. I think his dad was like a math teacher, maybe. And I forget what his mom did, but he definitely came from a smart family.
Well, and his parents were it wasn't, how you hear those cliches, like you did with Columbine about the parents.
Yeah.
But they were, as far as I could find, proactively in his adolescence, because, when you're an adolescent, that's when the depression and all the stuff starts. And they were proactive in getting him help. I think he saw a counselor or a therapist.
Yeah. I think you're correct.
But he was just awkward. He was socially awkward.
Yeah. So, okay, he was a native of San Diego. He enrolled in a PhD neuroscience program at the University of Colorado. in 2011, but he dropped out in June of 2012 after failing an important exam. Neighbors have reported that Holmes lived alone and he kept to himself. Prior to the massacre, Holmes was an honors student and a PhD candidate. He had a clear arrest record. He never showed any anger or antisocial tendencies in the days before the shooting. Someone quoted saying that he seemed kind of geeky. And they would just talk about football and that kind of thing. And that was said by Jackie Mitchell, who lived a block away from him. Another neighbor, Caitlin Fonzie, who lived directly below Holmes, said that she would hear loud techno music coming from his apartment the night of the shooting. So that must be when the whole bomb setup was happening. Prior to this incident, Holmes did not have a criminal record, as we said. He had, although he did mail Fenton, his campus clinic psychiatrist.
So see, he was actively trying to get some kind of psychological help with his depression and suicidal thoughts.
Yeah. But what he did was he had this notebook about his mental illness and his homicidal thoughts before the shootings occurred. And he sent that to a psychiatrist, but it wasn't discovered until days after the tragedy already happened.
And did you know, too, that, like, at some point when he had walked back out to his car, no, take that back. It was before he started the shooting. When he got up to go outside to put on his tactical gear, he had tried calling the university, the hospital.
Oh, just to see if they would answer.
Yeah, he said it was like one last attempt as, like, I guess a sign to see whether he should do it or not.
But no one answered.
Yeah.
Didn't he make a second call to someone else? Or was it just the one call? I could have it confused.
I don't know.
But he did call as a sign to not do this.
Mm-hmm. He said it like a one last attempt.
Yeah. And nobody answered. Following his arrest, Holmes was held in a solitary confinement at the detention center, and in prison, he experienced psychotic episodes and was hospitalized after allegedly attempting suicide by running headfirst into a wall. Yeah. So now we're going to get into the trial.
Did we mention that he took Vicodin the night of the shooting? Because
no, I don't think we did mention that.
He took that for pain because he thought he might get shot and he knew it would be painful.
And not only did he do that, but he also put earbuds in so he didn't have to listen to any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go back to that notebook real quick.
Okay, yeah.
So the notebook, a couple of the things that kind of stood out to us was like I think it was like 9 pages. He just wrote why.
Yeah, and the font would get larger and larger with each page. Yes.
And then the other thing was that thing that he wrote, like where it was like 1 kill equals like 1 life or something. I'm looking for that.
It was like he was leveling up with every life.
Yeah, like it's not a video game. Like 1 point. It's almost like what he was saying.
Yeah. That's what it sounded like to me. Like,
oh, here it is. Murder value maybe equals 2 dead. Equal may equal priceless.
Wow.
So, like, it's almost like he was taking the way he learned in school, the stuff that he learned, like, and making it like a math equation or something.
Something, because he does reference he got 13 life points from this.
Yes.
And that's how many people he killed.
This notebook was like 29 pages.
Yeah.
And there was drawings, and he, you know, we're going to get into the trial again, but when they say he was trying for the insanity plea, there's no way, because he planned this. Like in this book, there is scenarios, there's plans. It's crazy.
It really is. And
He was not insane. Mm-mm.
there's no way. I mean, just his actions leading up to it's all premeditated, in my opinion. I am no
agree.
attorney. I am no criminal expert. I am just giving you my thoughts. I just want to give that disclaimer. In no way do I know this. But the trial. So his first appearance in court, that's when his hair was dyed neon orange.
And he had these bugged out eyes.
Oh, his eyes are creepy. So some say it's to resemble the Joker. We already talked about that and how that was not the case. He just wanted to stand out. So the capital murder trial of James Egan Holmes had been taking a jury inside the, quote, broken, unquote, mind of a young man who really didn't like other people. Prosecutors say Holmes should pay with his life for the killings. Hours of tape-recorded sessions with a psychiatrist appointed by the court to evaluate his sanity have become part of evidence, as well as a notebook that we were talking about, in which Holmes sought to explain his actions.
So let me pause you for a second again, because talking about the psychiatrist, this psychiatrist, it was like hours that he spent on like 5 different days, I believe, interviewing him before the trial. And one of the things was he asked James was, were you calm? Like, was your heart pumping? Like, did you have adrenaline? And he said no, that he was calm and collected and that he just had to get it done. And it was a mission to him and he just wanted to be successful with the mission and that he wanted to be viewed as mentally ill or different from the norm. So, I mean, he
said that to the psychiatrist.
Yeah. Like, he plays a lot. It seems like he played up that mental illness a lot. Like, not like he used it as a crutch, but like...
an explanation as to why he did it.
And really, like, Nyoka and I were
to justify it.
We were discussing this earlier because we got really fired up because he said to the psychiatrist, he says, he felt depressed and like suicide. So he transferred the feelings of suicide to homicide. How that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, why hurt yourself and you can hurt everyone else?
He is beyond selfish.
He's very selfish. Yeah.
He only cared about really how he felt but at the same time, like, he's got to be a psychopath because one hand, he's worried about hurting children. Like, he asks that in the interrogation.
He does.
If he hurt a child. But then on the other hand, he's like, I don't like people.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, everybody has their own criteria and morals, right?
Yeah.
And his just is like, no kids, that's not cool.
But it's disgusting how maybe that someone is younger that is dealing with depression and like he was really into video games and stuff, which they brought that up a lot, that he would spend like 8 hours a day playing video games. He totally like isolated himself from people. He had friends in college and he told the psychiatrist that he just deleted all their numbers. Like, he had a girlfriend and they dated for months. They had a sexual relationship. There's got to be some intimacy, some feelings there.
Yeah.
But he just basically said, yeah, they stopped inviting me to things, so I just, like, wanted to do away with them, pretty much. Like, and the professor's like, well, you're the one that chose to, cut ties. Right. They didn't choose, you chose,
Yeah.
And he's just like,
So he didn't have those, like, emotional relationships.
It just didn't seem like it.
No, because that's not how anybody would just do things.
Right. And like I said, it makes me think about these younger people that are dealing with stressors from all sources, from school, from whatever, and they're trying to figure out who they are, and then you've got somebody like this I totally feel like he's using those things as a crutch or as a mask or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely mentally ill, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not insane during this shooting. He can't, I'm not believing him being insane. I feel like everything was premeditated.
Yeah. I think he was just
And his notebook even says that. His notebook had
Yeah.
like the venues down. Is it going to be the airport or a movie theater?
Yeah, how can someone insane
Have that much planning done? Yeah.
Like you said, we don't
just giving
study
our
those
opinions.
things, so I don't know.
I like to pretend I'm a detective and I'm a police officer all the time, but I'm not.
Well, and the way the mind works fascinates all of us.
Yeah, I love psychology.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm no psychologist. I took some classes though. Does that count for anything?
And we have life experiences. It's just our speculations.
That's right. So Holmes hasn't taken the witness stand, but he may as well have, because all the videotaped voice, flat, dull, boring self was filled in the courtroom. After weeks of gruesome and emotionally gripping testimony, the focus of Holmes' trial shifted in week 6 from the carnage to the man prosecutors hold responsible for it, and to the central questions in this case. What was Holmes' state of mind on July 20th, 2012, when he opened fire at the midnight showing of the Batman movie The Dark Knight Rises at Century 16 Multiplex in the Denver suburb of Aurora? Did I say that wrong?
Aurora.
Thank you. Was he sane or insane? Again, we've been talking about this the whole time, so we'll just go on.
Sane in the memory.
Oh my gosh, I thought that too. The jury's answers to these questions could very well determine whether the 27-year-old former grad student is executed or spends the rest of his days in a Colorado prison or mental hospital. Most defendants testify to try to save themselves, but Holmes' words are providing the pillar for the prosecution's case against him. He calls it the mission. And the mission is how Holmes referred to the shootings that killed 12 and wounded 70. After 22 hours of sessions, court-appointed psychiatrist William Reed concluded that Holmes was mentally ill but legally sane.
Which, this is the psychiatrist we were talking about earlier.
Yes. He invoked a diagnosis unfamiliar to most laymen: schizotypical personality disorder. In other words, the expert said Holmes was indeed sick and antisocial, but he was rational. The defendant acknowledged to Reed that shooting people is legally wrong.
He chose those words?
Mm-hmm.
Legally wrong.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Holmes quoted for saying that you get punished for killing. And he also stated with conviction, it's wrong to kill children. Holmes told Reed, the court-appointed psychiatrist, that he felt remorse, especially about the little girl's death. I think it's wrong to kill children, he stated. I choose to minimize child fatalities by choosing a midnight showing of a PG-13 movie, he explained. I felt sad that a child had died. It wasn't my intention to kill children or leave them parentless.
Which, you're an idiot, because do you think the people that went there didn't have kids?
I think that he was thinking it would be people his age.
Yeah.
In their 20s, seeing a midnight showing, and that parents and kids would be in bed asleep. That's what I think. In Holmes' skewed worldview, each life he took was worth a point, adding value to his own life. If his life had value, he reasoned, he wouldn't have to kill himself. But he said he never wanted to build life points by taking the lives of children. By the end of the movie theater shooting, Holmes believed he had raised his life capital to 13, while an ordinary person's would simply be worth a single point. The dead cannot be repaired, he told Reed. It's kind of irreversible. Instead, he said he absorbed their life experiences as well as their hopes and dreams into his own life.
What a piece of crap.
He had accomplished his mission, even if getting arrested was the price he had to pay. But he said he gained nothing from injuring people or leaving them behind to grieve for the dead. He spoke of the 70 people wounded as collateral damage. He focused instead on the mass shooting, mostly because he believed he could actually pull it off with maximum casualties. He rejected carrying out his mission at an airport. Too much security. Instead, he chose a movie theater because it could be crowded and there could be a limited number of exits. He seems to have spent considerable time casing the place and sketching detailed maps into the composition book. Holmes faced 166 counts, almost allegedly murder or attempted murder. The murder counts carry a possible death penalty. Holmes had offered to plead guilty in exchange for a life sentence. But the county district attorney, George Brochler, rejected any plea deal, stating, "For James Egan Holmes, justice is death." Prosecutors said they spoke with some 800 shooting survivors and family members of the 12 people slain before deciding to seek the ultimate penalty for Holmes. Holmes pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, and the court appointed 2 psychiatrists to conduct independent evaluations, which we talked about, but concluded that he was sane. In many states, In many states, it is left to the defense to prove insanity, but in Colorado, prosecutors bear the burden of proving a suspect sane. They must show that Holmes knew what he was doing was legally and morally wrong. Reed videotaped his sessions with Holmes, some 22 hours in all. Most of the recordings were played last week in court, which obviously it wasn't this last week, but you know.
Yeah, we knew what you meant.
Okay. It is unusual for a suspect in a mass killing to survive and go to trial, much less describe an attack in detail. Usually the suspects die by their own hand or they're killed by the police, an outcome popularly known as suicide by cop. But Holmes surrendered to the police in the parking lot outside the theater. And let's not forget, he had all that tactical gear on.
Right.
All the bulletproof things. He did not want to get shot and killed.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. And so the jury heard him describe what it was like to walk into the packed movie theater, toss the tear gas grenade into the crowd, and open fire. Jurors also heard him explain why he felt he had to do it. The victims had to die, Holmes said, so he wouldn't. I don't know if we said this, but the theater was completely sold out that night. It was a full theater, full crowd.
Yeah.
Even though it was a midnight showing, so don't think it wasn't a full crowd. It was.
Mm-hmm.
He told Reed about gearing up, about his bulletproof pants, gloves, gas mask, and slinging the AR-15 rifle over his shoulder, tucking the Glock into his belt, and picking up his loaded shotgun. He said he couldn't see well in the dark because of the gas mask. As he stepped out of his car outside the theater, he said he called a mental health hotline at the university. It was one last chance to stop the mission and back out, but no one picked up the phone.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Even if someone had tried to talk him down, Holmes said, he or she likely would have been overruled. He waited 9 seconds and then grew certain that the mission was a go.
Well, I wonder if he was so sure, then...
He probably looked at it as a sign. Like, I'm going to call. And if no one picks up, I'm totally doing the right thing. This is my life points I'm going to get. But if someone did pick up, he's still going to justify it. Either way, he was going to justify it.
Mm-hmm.
But them not picking up just made it even better.
Like,
in his mind.
reiterated it even more.
Yeah, like he should do this. It was really going to happen, he said. He felt calm and collected, as if he was on autopilot, and he started shooting. He knew he was well prepared. He doesn't remember hearing gunshots or panicked screams. He had techno music blasting through the earbuds he wore. He didn't view his targets as people. He didn't even know them. They were just numbers, sacrifices to his point system. Jurors have also learned about Holmes' family and what makes him tick. He has believed since that he was a teenager, that when he was a teenager, his mind was broken. He said that he had been obsessed with killing for more than a decade. Holmes killed to make himself feel better about potential personal setbacks, including failing at school and breaking up with his girlfriend. He wrote in his notebook and that he studied neurology in college and grad school in a failed attempt to fix his own broken mind. His childhood was haunted by night terrors in which nail ghosts hammered on the walls. Shadows and flickerings danced in his peripheral vision. He has been depressed and obsessed with murder since about the age 14, he said, because it was the only viable alternative to suicide. No voices commanded Holmes to kill. The idea was completely his own, he told Reed. I'd say I was on my own authority, he quoted. He said he considered carrying out the mass shooting at the movie theater since the day he bought the shotgun, May 28th. Neuroscience seemed like a way to go, but it didn't pan out. In order to rehabilitate the broken mind, my soul must be excavated. I could not sacrifice my soul and have a normal mind. He said he fought and fought until the end. To relieve his personal torture, he sought to escape by distracting himself or ignoring the problem. Still, his suppression and low opinion of himself persisted. And so, in the end, he made a choice and noted it in his composition book. The Last Escape, Mass Murder at the Movies. Now we're going to talk about his sentencing. Holmes was sentenced to life in prison without parole. On August 7th, 2015, more than 3 years after the shooting, Holmes was sentenced to life in prison without parole and avoided the death penalty because the jury could not come to an unanimous decision. In July 2015...
let's talk about that letter, which I don't have details of the letter, but his parents wrote a letter pleading to spare his life. And even, like, James himself said, I guess initially he had said that he was for the death penalty, and then he changed his mind because he didn't want to make his family sad.
Yeah, he was never for it, I don't think.
And then one of the victims, like that survived the shooting, they were asking like the thoughts on, because this letter, I guess it was made public to everyone. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I don't have the details of the letter, but it's just pleading for, which from a parent's point of view, I mean,
it makes sense,
right?
From a parent's point of view, like no matter what your child did,
you're gonna beg for their life.
Yeah.
And especially if you see them as sick, if it's something that mentally they can't help or whatever. But Marcus Weaver, he said, quote, he lost his right, talking about James, he lost his right to life the night he walked into that theater, and he should accept his fate. And, there was shock. The timing was awful when this letter was presented. And Melissa Calvin's and someone else, she called the letter comical.
Yeah. And I totally see their side of things too.
Totally, yes.
Absolutely. I guess I see both. I can see where the parents are coming from. That's their child.
Right. And then, when I first read that and saw that, I was like, did a lot of these people, did their parents get a chance to write a letter and plead for their lives?
Yeah, exactly.
They're not points.
Yeah, they're not points.
Right.
No. That's a good thing to bring up.
Yeah, and then one little thing just to kind of go back to the trial. They sent out 9,000 summons to people for the jury.
Oh my
9,000.
That's a whole lot. I wonder if that's like a record.
I don't know. And then like the trial was about 67 days, another little
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. In July 2015, Holmes was found guilty of all charges against him, included 2 accounts of first-degree murder for each deceased victims and 2 accounts of attempted murder for the reach of 70 others who were injured but survived. We do have a breakdown, actually. Do you have the breakdown handy?
He got, for the people that died, he got 12 life sentences consecutively. And then he got, for the people that it was first degree attempted murder, 48 years. And then for attempted second degree murder, 32 years. So each year was for a victim, right?
I believe so. That's how I read it.
Yeah. And then he got 6 years for the booby traps that he set up in his apartment. So
what's the total?
The total is 3,318 years.
Wow.
And we're going to insert a little clip of the judges ruling on the sentence.
Oh, yes. You know what? We're going to insert it right now.
118. So the record is clear. It's 12 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. And then those life sentences are also consecutive to 3,318 years in the Department of Corrections. I realize that I have imposed the maximum sentences. And somebody yesterday said, Judge, I want to make sure that whatever sentences you impose, that you are 100% sure that they are just and fair. And I am 100% sure that these are just and fair. I want to make it clear that it is the court's intention that the defendant never set foot in free society again. The intention of my sentences is that he spend every single day of the rest of his life in prison, and that he be imprisoned without the possibility of parole. If there was ever a case that warranted the maximum sentences, this is the case. One of the victims yesterday said the defendant does not deserve any sympathy. I wholeheartedly agree. The defendant does not deserve any sympathy, and for that reason, the court imposes the maximum sentences that the court can impose under the law. For the defendant out of my courtroom, please. Thank you.
Okay, was that clip not amazing? Just saying. So Holmes admitted to the killings, but argued that he was not guilty by the reason of insanity. His attorneys pushed for him to be committed to a mental hospital for the rest of his life. State prosecutors sought the death penalty, but as you heard the judge say, he got all of those thousands of years. After the shooting, Holmes' mother and her husband released a statement saying that their hearts go out to those involved in the tragedy and to family and friends of those involved. Which I guess is a nice little quote, I guess. I don't know.
I mean,
as a parent of somebody like this, I don't know what
you would be so torn.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Do you have any updates on him as far as...
The only thing that I can say is that he looks like a totally different person. I want to say that I read something that he's being medicated and that he looks healthier. Like he looks, I don't want to say normal, but normal.
Yeah.
Like it looks like there's life in his eyes, maybe.
Yeah.
But other than that,
That's it.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's gonna die in there.
Yep.
For sure.
For sure.
And that's the story of James Holmes.
Yeah, and then we kind of wanted to touch on some of the survivors and just one particular little story. Alex Teves was one of the people who lost his life that night.
Sirens are going off like crazy.
That's
tonight.
like the third time. So Alex's parents have this. There's a website. It's called No Notoriety or Notoriety. We can't talk.
Nope.
And it's to kind of educate, like, the shooters' names, like the media. It's for the media. So I'm just going to read this real quick.
Yes.
So, No Notoriety Media Protocol to reduce rampage acts of mass violence due to media-inspired fame. And so some of their key points is to adhere to the journalistic principle to minimize harm, keeping in mind that the responsibility of balancing the public's need for information versus potential harm. Recognize that the prospect of infamy serves as a motivating factor for other individuals to kill and inspire copycat crimes. Report the facts surrounding the mindset, demographic, and motivational profile without adding complementary color to the individual or their actions, and downplay the individual's name and likeness unless the alleged assailant is at large. Limit the name to once per piece as a reference point, never in the headlines, and no photo above the fold. Refuse to broadcast, publish self-serving statements, photos, videos, and or manifestos made by the individual. After initial identification, limit the name and likeness of the individual in reporting, except when the alleged assailant is still at large. In doing so, would aid in the assailant's capture. Elevate the names and likeness of all victims killed and or injured to send the message their lives are more important than the killer's actions. Agree to promote data and analysis from experts in mental health, public safety, and other relevant professions to support further steps to help eliminate the motivation behind mass murder. It's a matter of public safety, no name, no photo, no notoriety. And the website is www.nonotoriety.com.
I have so much to say on this, and it's conflicting. So we definitely don't want to make killers famous.
Right.
But people have to justify things in their mind about what happened.
Like
And
why
I feel
bad
like-
things happen.
I feel like a lot of us need to know, who was it? Why did they do it? Where
Mhm.
was this at? And then you're always going to have the media putting it out. They're never going to not put out that information.
Yeah.
Then I understand the whole copycat thing. Have you ever watched that movie Copycat? Do you remember that movie back in, I think it was in the 90s,
No.
maybe late 90s? It was really good. Anyway, so, I mean, I totally get that, but I feel like we also like justify it in our head by knowing all the information as well.
Yeah, because on one hand, you could say some of these people, I mean, a couple of them have said, well, I did it because I wanted to be like so-and-so. But most of them, it's about their own personal...
It's like their own demons.
their own issues, their
dealing
own
with. Yeah.
self-absorbed selfishness, whatever.
And then there's people like me that are obsessed with true crime. I love all the shows. I love all the podcasts as to why we're making a podcast.
But it's not...
But I don't feel like we're glorifying them.
Yeah, I don't know. At
You
least
see
for
what
me,
I mean, though? Like,
for me, it's like trying to... Like, I struggle in my head, like, why do things like this happen?
right.
And for me, it's like therapeutic to talk about it and to get different views
Yeah.
from other people,
Yeah.
like their input, or like you and I do, go back and forth.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
maybe that's why. Like, I just want to understand why they do it.
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. And a lot of times we'll never really understand. But the survivor stories are always touching, and then just maybe it kind of makes you realize you need to be aware of your surroundings. Maybe when you're in a crowded place, I know for me, only because I get a little overwhelmed in crowded places.
Right.
I look for exits first. Like if I had to leave here, where are the exits? But at the same time, I'm not very observant and I need to pay more attention to
Same.
my surroundings, not just where the exits are.
Well, I don't know. For me, I don't think about that kind of stuff. I used to constantly think about, like, oh my God, what if there's a hurricane or an earthquake or something?
Some more nature out of your control
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's the misconception of this thing of all of us who are obsessed with true crime. It's not about, oh my God, he's so cool, blah, blah, blah. Which, maybe we're putting words into people's mouths that think that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. But anyway.
It's just.
Let's strike up a conversation.
Well, something bad. There's always something good that comes from it, right? Like a learning experience. I try to think of that.
A lot of people they advocate for other people that are going through it, and I feel like some good things come out of bad things.
There has to be, or how can we get through bad things? That's how we have to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've just totally went off track, that was the story. And
oh, and one more thing though before we go is I want to read some of the names
of the people that passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Let's talk about the victims.
There's not anything Jessica Gowie. So I really wanted to mention her because this is nuts. So she made like a tweet or something, and it was like, I never thought I would have to coerce a guy to come see a Batman movie with me at night.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. So about a month before this happened in Colorado, she was in Toronto at a mall, and there was a mall shooting there. And,
what are the chances of being in 2 shootings?
Right. And then what's even more weird is that she said that there was a person standing outside wherever she was, and they had on a Batman costume, and it said, "Please give me money. Both my parents have died." And she was like, how tacky is that?
That is very, yeah.
Some other names to mention is just Dion Rosborough, Jacqueline Fry, Pierce O'Farrell, Jansen Young, Petra Hogan, Jameson Toes, Farah Sudani, and I'm sorry for butchering your names. Those people, I believe, they either testified at the trial or they were survivors. Some other names that I would like to mention is Tony Bryson, Villa Pondo, Mike White Sr. and Jr., Paula Adams, Michelle Baker, Heather Snyder, Alex Sullivan. And then these are people that passed that night. Jonathan Blanc, sorry about that, Alexander Boyd, Jesse Childress, Gordon Cowden, John Larimer, Matthew McQuinn, Michaela Medic, Veronica Mosier Sullivan, and Rebecca Wingo. So I don't know, I just wanted to mention their names.
I think that was perfect. Yeah. So the girl that was in 2 shootings, she survived both shootings, right?
Actually, no, she did not survive in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But her, the person that she went to the movies with, he testified at the trial and talked about her.
Wow. Wow. All right. Got anything else for us?
Just all the police officers. Just a shout out to them. A lot of the police officers use their vehicles as ambulances and got people to the hospital because, like, some of the detectives, they couldn't even get to the area because it was so chaotic.
Yeah. There weren't enough of anything.
Yeah.
Help, vehicles,
Right.
space.
And then just one last little thing is that it's not funny, but I just have to mention because he looked like such an idiot. In the interrogation video, they take these paper bags and they put it over his hands, over James's hands. Yeah. I guess to hide evidence or to
prevent it from
Yes.
falling.
But
because he was fidgety. He was like fidgeting with everything.
He was like messing with the table, like
everything.
It was just odd and weird to see this person sitting there with these bags over their hands.
It was like paper bag puppets.
Yes.
And crinkling.
It was just very odd.
Yeah. Very odd. All right. So, we should be doing a bonus episode next week, I believe. So those who have access on our Patreon will get this episode. Rachel's looking at me.
What are we gonna do?
I know, she's got the wheels turning.
And this will be for Jen, Shane, Sissy, and Gina. Gina, I almost forgot. I didn't forget your name, but I almost forgot your name.
I didn't forget, but I almost did.
I'm sorry, Gina.
She loves you. But yeah, look for all of those things, and that's all. That's all we got till next week. So we still haven't forgotten about the drunken episode. We're still planning that. We have to be responsible and have rides and a good day to do it and not feel sick and stuff. So, yeah, that'll be coming soon. And that's it.
Goodbye.
Bye.